Hello. I'm still trying to figure out a good setup for taking videos. My room is mostly bed. And so now I'm lying on my stomach on my bed. I guess this isn't so bad, right? Like you can see me because I was sitting up and it just felt really far away and I just want to hang out with you guys. I just want to see you. Like we're hanging out, right? And I'm not just like far away like talking at you. Right? Does that feel like this to you? Or am I just being insane? I went to another book swap. I got rid of my last 3 books. I did not keep any of them. I gave them all up. And now I have another batch of 3 books. I traded the 3 for the 3. So now I'm here to tell you about this next set. As you can see, these ones are well loved. The first one that I'm really excited about is Ursula K. LeGuin's The Left Hand of Darkness. Last year I read LeGuin's The Lathe of Heaven for a book club, and it was one of my favorites of the year. She does super interesting, super intelligent, speculative sci-fi. She also has done some very well-known fantasy as well. She's just a master of the craft. And this was written in 1969. And then this is an old trade paperback from 1979. I love this kind of little trade paperback for like genre fiction. I love the kind of vintage art that you can find on this sort of thing. Look, so it's about a guy from like this intergalactic alliance who's trying to recruit this new planet into their alliance. And on this planet, the people who live there can switch genders depending on like their kind of like hormonal cycle. And so like each individual has the potential to be either male or female. And so just kind of and how that affects their society. And so yeah, so that's why it's like there's like a male face and a female face. Oh, also it's like a really cold planet. It's like everything's always really cold. And look, there's like a tiny guy. Do you see that? There's a little guy right there. I just think the art is so fun. So this one I'm gonna keep because I love Ursula K. Le Guin. I think she's fantastic, and I just love this kind of vintage book. So I'm very excited about this. The person who was swapping this said that it's one of her favorite books of all time, but she has multiple copies, and so she's giving this one up. That's good for me. So excited about this one. I'm going to read this one first. And then we have Bunny, It's a Little Chewed On, by Mona Awad. This one I've been really meaning to read because it is Books Nala's favorite book. One of her favorites. I don't know. I feel like it's maybe her favorite ever. She talks about it a lot. And I know it's really weird and kind of a horror thriller kind of vibe. And then it's about like a group of girls in college who there's like this kind of hive mind of these girls, and they do these weird experiments, and they're kind of cultish, and it's just really weird. The person who swapped this hated it, did not like it, so that didn't make any sense. They didn't understand what was going on. They did not like it. But then Kayla from Books Nala, she loves it. It's one of her favorite books of all time. So I must read it for myself. And I like a weird book. I like something, I love it when it's something I've never seen before. And I am fully prepared to not have any answers. Speculative type stuff does tend to be a bit more open-ended, a bit more ambiguous. And so I am open to that experience. I do suspect that it's that kind of thing that made the swapper of this so upset. She was like, it didn't make any sense. I didn't understand. It's like, maybe that's the point. Sometimes that sort of thing does really bug me. So, but we'll see. We'll see what my reaction to this is. And then the other one, this is from the same person that swapped Bunny. She apparently didn't even read this one. It's just been kicking around. And so she was like, I'm just going to get rid of it. It's called The Poison Season by Mara Rutherford. Really beautiful, kind of romantic-y looking cover. It looks like it's YA. That is my instinct. Oh my gosh, it's got a cute little bookmark that matches. Look, there's little plants on the bookmark. That's really cute. Listen, I'm trying to figure out what this book is about. And maybe you can help me because I just can't figure it out, okay? Here's what the description says. It says, outsiders are always given a choice. The forest or the lake. Either way, they're never heard from again. Lilo. Okay. Lilo and Stitch, except it's blonde romantasy girl. Lilo has spent her entire life on Endla, coexisting with the bloodthirsty forest and respecting the poisonous lake that protects her island from outsiders who seek to destroy it. But as much as Lilo cares for her community, she struggles to accept that her younger brother will be exiled by his next birthday unless he gains the magic of enchanted song so vital to Endla. Okay, so that's the first paragraph. Poisonous lake, scary forest. Her younger brother will be exiled unless he gains a magical power for some reason, and she's sad about that. Second paragraph. When Lilo sees a young outsider on the verge of drowning in the lake, she knows exactly what she's supposed to do. But in a moment that will change everything. Lilo betrays her family, her best friend, and Endla by making an unthinkable choice. Okay, so outsiders are bad, and she sees an outsider, and she makes an unthinkable choice. And so she must rescue this. She probably rescues this outsider, and that's bad because they're an isolationist community. Discovery could lead to devastating consequences for both Lilo and the outsider Jaren. Jaren? Lilo and Jaren. Ugh. But as they grow closer, Lilo realizes that not all danger comes from beyond the lake, and they can only survive if Lilo is willing to question the very fabric of her society, her people, and herself. Okay, so she's rescued a guy named Jaren. Ugh, it's a J name. Not all danger comes from outside, so she's discovered that from within her society there are things that are dangerous, and they can only survive if she questions things. So the premise of this story is she lives in a place that's protected by an evil forest and a poisonous lake. Her brother's going to be exiled unless he gets magic powers. She rescues an outsider from the lake, which is bad, and because of that discovers that maybe her society, there's more to her society than she realizes. Just a lot of components here, a lot going on, and also the dust jacket is on backwards. Still feels a little vague. The description does make it sound like it's kind of like fantasy dystopic, perhaps, like she discovers that her society's lying to her or something. Oh, it's signed. That's cute. Look, a cute little signature with a little heart. That's really fun. There's a map. Okay. Yeah, so it's the map of the island with that's on the poisonous lake with the evil forest. Endla. Lake Luma. 390 pages, so should be okay. Shouldn't be too tough of a read. So we have a very eclectic mix once again. I'm excited to let you know how it goes. And I'll see you soon. Hello, I'm more than halfway. I'm like maybe 75% the way through The Left Hand of Darkness. Mixed feelings about this so far. It's very intelligent. I like Ursula K. LeGuin is just clearly such a deep thinker and has a lot to say just about the human existence. There's a lot of very interesting philosophical concepts being explored in here about choices and control and certainty versus uncertainty. Like there's this part where the main character is like staying with these monks basically, and that's really interesting. I do appreciate some good old-fashioned like sci-fi politics between all of the different factions on this and these different kingdoms. That's interesting. It's just that I think I'm just too Gen Z for this right now, because all of the people in this world at like every month could become either a male or a female in order to reproduce. And me, a 2025 Gen Z youth, would think to refer to that kind of person as they, or maybe just by their name, or some other way to keep it like very gender neutral. But instead, it refers to all the people on this planet as he and as men. And at one point in these like scientific notes in the book, it even mentions that it is using the he pronoun in the same universal way that God is referred to as he. And I'm like, well, that's also definitely not very neutral. But just that means that in my brain, instead of thinking of them as these gender neutral beings, I am thinking of it as just a planet full of men. And that makes the whole alien genderlessness very difficult to remember, because it's just using he and man the entire time. And it just takes me out of it. But I realized that the concept of using they as like a gender neutral pronoun is like a very new thing, and was probably not even I don't know if that was discussed in queer theory in 1969. And that Ursula K. LeGuin was working with what she had at the time. That's great. It just means that I am not immersed in it. My brain is on this track of this is a planet of men. And like every once in a while, the narrator will talk about how all of these men are like strangely feminine to him and his alien perspective. And so there is that doing some heavy lifting here. It just isn't quite getting the point across to me. It's just not clicking. I have to think about it in order to remember to think like, okay, how would this factor into like how is this uniquely like a genderless society? Because my brain just keeps thinking it's just a man society, and there are so many books in general in that take place in the real world that only have male characters that it just kind of ends up feeling like that. It just feels like a colossal flop of the Bechdel test instead of it being any kind of gender neutral society. I don't know. It's not clicking, unfortunately. I like all the ideas. The descriptions of everything that's happening is interesting. Just the overall like interesting gender dynamics that I was expecting is not there. It's just not there for me right now. But I'm interested in seeing how it wraps up. All right, I get it. It all came together in the end. Ursula, you sly dog, you. It all happened. I am giving this a 4. I from the majority of this book, I thought it was going to be a 3, but at the end, it is going to be a 4. But that's a significant 4 because it's just that the whole gender thing of like it referring to these genderless beings or like gender fluid beings as men the entire time really threw me off, and that did really impact a lot of my experience of it. But everything else, incredible. Because all of the themes just came together so well. And like there were multiple moments in like the final chapters where like everything just clicked, man. It was crazy. She knows what she's doing. She knows she's a smart lady. And especially seemed like, I don't know, like the gender stuff doesn't even really seem, I mean, the point, it seems that like she's playing with gender in order to explore the duality of humankind, but also the duality just of like existence and experience. Because ultimately the title, The Left Hand of Darkness, comes from a story explaining that light, a story and a saying talk about how light is the left hand of darkness, like light and darkness are inherently connected. It just explores that in really beautiful ways that just like, oh man, like, so another thing that it's like, yeah, this is not a totally 5-star experience for me is that there's 40 pages of two of the characters just walking for like 1,000 miles through ice and snow across mountains and like plains of ice. And so much of it is literally just descriptions of walking across ice. And to a point, I get it, of like having it be that long really conveys to the reader just how long and miserable it was, and we get to experience the length of misery with them. I was just as miserable as they were, almost. But I do think it was a bit much. I think that I could have gotten it. I could have gotten the point after 30, maybe even 20 pages. I think that would have sufficed. Though I will say, at like literally the very end, can I even find it? Hold on. There is just a point. So there are various points at like once they finally get across this plane of ice that like just things really come together, and I'm like, whoa, this is crazy. When you get through all 40 pages and they finally reach civilization, this really doesn't hit if you haven't read the 40 pages, okay? So like this isn't, if you haven't read this book, it's not really gonna do anything, but this hit me so hard. All those miles and days had been across a houseless, speechless desolation, rock, ice, sky, and silence. Nothing else for 81 days except each other. And like, because they just reached such a profound understanding of each other, even though they're from completely different planets and their bodies function completely differently. The way it portrays intercultural relationships and communication is just amazing. And yeah, left hand of darkness, darkest part of light. We need a balance between different things. Kind of talks about how like these people on this planet have a certain kind of completeness because they are both male and female that other humans do not have. They have a certain understanding of that duality. There's a dominant religion that the main character spends a lot of time with that really emphasizes duality and how you kind of have to just accept that nothing is certain and everything's tied together. Does this make sense? Am I making any sense right now? I'm kind of tired. I might be really tired, actually. But it's good stuff. This is good. You know, if you're just into deep thoughts, philosophical musings, I think sci-fi is the way to go, man. I also do think that if you're interested in gender stuff, there is interesting things in here. It's just a lot more theoretical than practical. Like, it's not out here like turning gender roles on its head and being like, whoa, isn't it so crazy that everyone in society does these certain things that in Earth society is divided up by gender. It's not that sort of thing. Oh my gosh, I'm so sorry. It's subtler than that. And then there is the whole calling them men thing. So you just got to go in prepared and go in knowing that it's going to be more conceptual than just kind of like on the surface differences between men and women, you know? So there's a lot here. This is still a highly relevant book. Still, just a lot of things about being a person, connecting with other people, suffering, getting through it, making stuff happen. I am happy that I've decided to keep this one. That's a good choice. I'm having an amazing time with Bunny. I'm like almost basically like almost exactly halfway through. It's weird. It's not scary. It is definitely horror. There is some fairly pragmatic descriptions of blood and guts. Oh, maybe eerie. I would say eerie would be a good description of this story. There's a lot going on. The themes are off the charts with Bunny. We've got stuff about academia, wealth, and class. Nothing has those are pretty overt, like what it's saying about those things. There is a lot of stuff that I can see kind of about like whiteness and privilege that I can kind of see going on. There's stuff going on about sexuality and gender, also like belonging and relationships. Lots of that going on, while also it just being a super crazy, very unique plotline of basically if Mean Girls was like a witchy Frankenstein horror story. What if Regina George was actually directing everyone to do crazy supernatural experiments on rabbits and drugged the main character into going along. So yeah, very surreal, kind of trippy. Well, it could be crazier. There's definitely there's like a very long montage of like the main character not really like being really out of it and just kind of a trippy series of strange descriptions. I'm really excited for the second half because like so far it's weird, but it's not like off the charts like unbelievably weird. I feel like when it comes to horror stories, one of the reasons why I find them really fun is that they often bring up like really bizarre, unique, original scenarios. And so I would say that's where the weirdness is coming from here, is that it's just like extremely original. Well, is it extremely original? Like I said, there's some Frankenstein. There's some Frankenstein going on here. But you really don't see this kind of story every day in your typical popular novel. I get the feeling that the ending is going to go to like totally off the rails, so I'm really looking forward to that. Okay, I loved it. 5 stars. Probably one of my favorite books of the year. I totally get it, okay? I don't know, there just seems to be a disconnect between the people who get it and the people who don't get it. I think if you don't get it, you're just not going to get it, and that's fine. Because the negative reviews of this, I just do not connect with at all. I just see exactly what it's doing. I really think that the creative writing workshop aspect to this is really essential to the story. I think that's pretty obvious to me. So these girls are in a creative writing program, and then they're also creating little like science experiments. And I did a creative writing minor, which is clearly not the same thing as getting a master's degree in creative writing. And everything I say about people that I'm about to say about people in creative writing programs, feel free to also apply to me, okay? So most of the people in my classes drove me insane. I just thought they were all so arrogant. Most people would not take any kind of constructive criticism, just wanted anything they produced to be praised and for them to be treated as geniuses. I would say most of the writing that I read from my classmates was bad, even though all of them want to be treated as these brilliant geniuses and want to be told that nothing is wrong with what they're writing. And again, you can feel free. I don't know. I appreciated constructive criticism, but then I also, sometimes I thought that things people had to say about my writing was stupid and shallow. I don't know. I just have found, again, I have been in a creative writing program, so feel free to apply this to me. People who want other people to read what they write can often approach that process in a way that's very arrogant and self-serving. And I can see so much of that in this, both in like the literal writing workshops that these girls are doing, where they're like, oh my gosh, look how genius everything is. And then like telling them in character like, oh, yours is weird and gross and we don't like it, which it just feels very familiar to me. And then when they create these creatures, just kind of doing it with abandon and not really thinking about the consequences, which, when you write something bad, the consequences are just that you're forcing bad writing on other people. But when you create a living being and you cause it to suffer, where am I getting with this? I think in both instances, like the creating creatures and the writing the stories in creative writing reveals a bit of a god complex, a bit of an arrogant god complex that I think is very true to life. I think this captures the essence of arrogant creative writing students only thinking about themselves and not actually thinking about whether or not they are contributing something good and worthwhile. And then there's also an aspect to it where they're trying to make these perfect creatures, and these creatures never turn out perfect. Then we see what happens when there is a creature that ends up embodying everything that the main character desires. And so it's all about desire, not necessarily sexual desire. I think that the way that this treats sexual desire is much more functional than erotic. Of just like, oh yes, these are all people who also happen to have sexual attraction. The desires of the main character that are expressed are more like desire for belonging and connection, but also desire for control and power. So I think there's also an element of like wish fulfillment, like what of wish fulfillment, like what actually happens when you get your wish. There is a reveal at the end that I thought was really good. It wasn't crazy. It wasn't this like shocking twist. It was like, oh, okay, yeah, that really works. And I just really enjoyed it. I also just thought that the writing was really funny and really creative, and I had a great time. And I think it's really interesting to see who likes this book and who doesn't like this book, because I loved it. And so then I'll like be looking at reviews on Goodreads of like people I know and be like, oh my gosh, they didn't like it? Like, why not? Like, I loved it. I don't know. I had a great time. I liked it a lot. I'm halfway through the poison season, and I've gotten answers to all of my questions about the inside flap. The main character, Lilo, lives on an island that has like a carnivorous forest on it that will eat people and animals, like the trees and like the ground will like swallow them up. And then they are surrounded by a poisonous lake, but it's not just a poisonous lake. The lake is basically acid. Like if you fall into it, it will just dissolve you. And also everyone on this island, this is something that confused me in the flap, but now I understand. Everyone on the island has magical singing powers where they sing together, they sing different kinds of songs together that will like accomplish certain things. So like they have a couple of nice songs so far, but mostly the ones that stand out to me the most are the killing song and the hunting song. And her younger brother has not developed magic powers that allows his singing to do those things. and so he's going to be exiled when he turns 12. And she's like freaking out about this, and everyone's being really mean about it as well. People are like just kind of rude about people who don't have magic powers, but like it does seem like it's good that he's being kicked out, because apparently people who don't have magic can be affected by the songs, like once they get older. And so like the killing songs and the hunting songs can like hurt them, and like it's mentioned that, but she doesn't really dwell on that very much. She doesn't really think like, oh, if he stays here, like he'll die. Like she doesn't really think about that. And then meanwhile, there is an outsider boy from not the island. Also, there's like 300 people on this island, and they've been there for like generations and generations, and I just can't stop thinking about how like, are they all like super inbred now? Like I don't know. And there's a boy named Jaren who, while on the shore of the lake, on like the opposite side of the lake, accidentally heard one of Lilo's songs, and he got like kind of spellbound by it. And so he like keeps going back to the lake, being like, why am I being drawn to this lake? And then at one point he was chased by a wolf. It was very convoluted. He was chased by a giant wolf that's probably magical, and there happened to be the boat that takes the non-magical children across the lake was still on the opposite shore, which doesn't make any sense to me, but whatever. And so the wolf chased him basically onto the boat, and then he like went out onto the lake, but there was a hole in the boat. And so by the time he got to the time Lilo rescued him on the island, the boat was basically sunk and they couldn't get back across. Very convenient for the plot. And so now he's trapped on the island, and she's trying to figure out how to get him off, because the village will kill outsiders. They get to choose the forest or the lake. That was also on the flap. And if they choose the forest, then the forest will eat them. And if they choose the lake, then the lake will dissolve them. So she's trying to prevent that from happening, because everyone in the village is like bloodthirsty and horrible, and she feels like a traitor to her village because she feels bad about killing people. Oh no. So I think the acid lake and the carnivorous forest are actually very intriguing to me, and the fact that like the village is pretty dark, that like everyone's just like so comfortable with like death and pain and destruction is like very intriguing to me. But I really wish there was more drama along with that. Like the way that it's written, it feels much simpler and younger than I want it to be for like the really dark implications of the world. Like I was trying to think of a comparison, and like the biggest comparison I can think of is like a Shannon Hale book. Like, you know, tackles some kind of bigger stuff, but is ultimately for quite young people. And I just wish they really played up the dark dramatic bits a little bit more. The characters are also very blah, but I do appreciate the interesting setting. But yeah, I'm just a little bored. It's not offensive to me. It's just kind of boring. Okay, I finished it. It was fine. Like, okay, the romance was really cute. The two main characters really had a lot of chemistry together. It was very sweet. I thought they made sense. It was also very like, it was very first love, like young, fairly innocent, just cute. It threw a bunch of kind of reveals at us at the end, and I wish that there had been more build up to it. I wish it had felt more like a mystery, because then I feel like the reveals would have had more weight to them. Instead, it was just kind of like, oh, okay. Like, they didn't quite come out of nowhere. There were a couple things that had kind of alluded to these reveals, like leading up to it, but I wish that there had been like tension building of like what's going on, what's happening. Throughout the story, people allude to like, oh, there are secrets, there's something going on, and then when you find out what's going on, I don't know, it just didn't feel that big to me. I wish that it had been built up better. Also, yeah, I think I mentioned this in the first half review, but like there are elements of this that are so dark and that I really wish had been played up, but instead they're treated they're kind of downplayed, I think. Like near the end, it's revealed that there are certain cases where in order to punish someone, instead of just telling them to either go into the carnivorous forest or to go into the acid lake, they're released into the forest to be hunted by the rest of the villagers. like they just very casually just mention human hunting, and it's kind of treated as like not a big deal. And I really wish that had been played up as like really scary and dark, but instead it was just kind of like it just kind of was. Like, you guys, come on, you guys. And then also, I thought the ending was too neat and tidy and happily ever after, because basically the main character ends up just kind of making a big speech to the village about how their way of life is wrong, and everyone's just kind of like, yeah, and decides to give up. And it's like, seriously, are you serious? Like, everyone just decides to stop their way of life like immediately. I don't know, I don't buy it. And then also, the last thing that bothers me, the poison season has nothing to do with anything. Like, poisonous things are mentioned throughout the book, that like a lot of poisonous things grow in the carnivorous forest. And also, it is revealed, this isn't too much of a spoiler, that the main character's mother is like slowly being poisoned, but then she gets better. It's fine. But like, there is no poison season. Like, there isn't anything but a poison season. Also, like, the poison isn't that big of a part of the story. Poison's just not a big part of it, which I'm also confused because like, this came with a cute little bookmark that on one side is the cover and on the other side is different poisonous plants, which is cute, but like, this doesn't really have anything to do with the story. So that's kind of odd. I don't know. Yeah. Like, so I'm giving it 3 stars because it was cute and sweet and I had a good time. I think I would have loved this if I was like 12. But as an adult, there were just a lot of parts of it that felt that for me. But, you know, it wasn't an utter disaster. Like, that was fine. It was cute.